Lyndon B. Johnson's presidency began in the shadow of tragedy, but it would go on to be marked by significant achievements and challenges that would shape the course of America's future. Chapter 9. The Great Society. Lyndon B. Johnson, now President of the United States after the tragedy in Dallas, had a vision. He dreamed of a great society, a bold and ambitious plan to improve the life of every American. This vision was more than just words. It was a call to action for change, to build a better, more just, and more prosperous country for all. The Great Society aimed to tackle the nation's biggest problems. President Johnson believed that a great country like the United States could and should eliminate poverty, improve education, protect the environment, and ensure justice for every citizen, regardless of their background or color. One of the first steps in building the Great Society was fighting poverty. Johnson knew that too many Americans lived without enough food, decent housing, or hope for a better future. He introduced programs like Medicare and Medicaid to help older Americans and those with low incomes afford medical care. He also created programs to bring jobs and training to the poor, helping them to stand on their own feet. Education was another cornerstone of the Great Society. Johnson believed that education was the key to unlocking the door to a better life. He introduced the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which provided federal funds for schools, especially those in poor areas. This act was groundbreaking because it recognized the government's role in ensuring every child had access to quality education. The environment was also a significant concern for Johnson. He saw the pollution of air and water as threats to the health and beauty of America. Under his leadership, laws were passed to clean the air, make the water safe to drink, and protect the natural landscapes that made America beautiful. These actions laid the groundwork for the environmental movement that would grow in the years to come. Civil rights were at the heart of the Great Society. Johnson believed that America could never be truly great if any of its citizens were denied their rights because of their skin color. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 were monumental achievements of his presidency. They outlawed segregation and discrimination, ensuring that all Americans, regardless of race, had the right to vote and access to public spaces. Johnson's vision for the Great Society was grand, and it required a lot of work to turn it into reality. He used his political skills, honed in the Senate, to persuade, negotiate, and sometimes push hard to get Congress to pass these laws. His efforts were often successful, leading to a period of significant legislative achievement. However, the Great Society faced challenges. Not everyone agreed with Johnson's approach. Some thought the government was doing too much and feared the growing costs of these programs. Others felt the changes did not go far enough to address the deep inequalities in American society. And as the Vietnam War escalated, more and more resources were diverted away from domestic programs, making it harder to achieve all of Johnson's goals. Despite these challenges, the Great Society left a lasting legacy. Many of the programs and laws that Johnson introduced have become an integral part of American society, shaping the nation in important ways. Medicare and Medicaid have provided essential health care to millions. Educational reforms have opened up opportunities for countless children. Environmental protections have preserved natural treasures for future generations. And the civil rights legislation has moved the country closer to its founding promise of equality for all. President Lyndon B. Johnson's vision of the Great Society was ambitious, aiming to transform America into a place where the wealth was shared. The old and the sick were cared for. The environment was protected. And every person's rights were respected. While not all of his goals were fully realized, his presidency marked a significant shift in how Americans viewed their government's role in addressing social issues. The story of the Great Society is a testament to the power of vision and leadership in driving change. It reminds us that with determination and collective effort, it is possible to confront the challenges of the times and work toward a better future. Lyndon B. Johnson's Great Society remains a pivotal chapter in American history, a period of profound change that has shaped the nation's path toward justice, equality, and prosperity for all its citizens. Chapter 10. Civil Rights Champion. Lyndon B. Johnson took the presidency during a time when America was deeply divided by issues of race and equality. Despite the challenges, he emerged as a champion of civil rights, using his position to make significant strides toward ending segregation and discrimination in the United States. Johnson's journey as a civil rights leader was marked by bold decisions and groundbreaking legislation. His commitment to civil rights was partly influenced by his early experiences as a teacher in Cotulla, Texas, where he saw the harsh realities of poverty and racial discrimination faced by his Mexican-American students. These experiences left a lasting impression on Johnson, fueling his determination to fight for equality and justice. One of Johnson's most significant achievements in civil rights was the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. This landmark legislation was one of the most comprehensive civil rights laws in American history. It aimed to end segregation in public places, banned employment discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin, and enforced the desegregation of schools. This act marked a turning point in the struggle for civil rights, signaling a new era of equality. Getting the Civil Rights Act passed was not easy. Johnson faced strong opposition from some members of Congress, particularly from the South, who were determined to maintain segregation. However, Johnson was a masterful politician with a deep understanding of the legislative process. He used his skills to persuade, negotiate, and sometimes pressure lawmakers into supporting the bill. His efforts were successful, and the Civil Rights Act became law, changing the landscape of American society. Following the Civil Rights Act, Johnson didn't stop there. He continued his fight for civil rights with the Voting Rights Act of 1965. This important law aimed to overcome legal barriers at the state and local levels that prevented African Americans from exercising their right to vote as guaranteed under the 15th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. The Voting Rights Act was a critical step in ensuring that all Americans, regardless of race, had a voice in their government. It significantly increased voter registration in the South, transforming the political landscape and empowering African American communities. Johnson's commitment to civil rights also extended to economic justice. He believed that true equality could not be achieved without addressing the economic disparities that affected minority communities. As part of his Great Society programs, Johnson introduced measures to combat poverty, improve education, and provide better housing opportunities for all Americans, regardless of their race. Despite his achievements, Johnson's presidency was not without controversy. His policies and the Vietnam War polarized public opinion, and he faced criticism from both supporters and opponents of civil rights. Nevertheless, Johnson's legacy as a civil rights champion is undeniable. He took up the mantle of civil rights at a crucial moment in history and pushed through legislation that forever changed America. Johnson's leadership in civil rights demonstrated his belief in the power of government to enact positive change. He once said, "We believe that all men have certain unalienable rights, yet many Americans do not enjoy those rights." Johnson worked tirelessly to ensure that the ideals of freedom and equality were not just words in the Constitution, but realities for all Americans. The impact of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 continues to be felt today. These laws paved the way for further civil rights advancements and inspired generations to continue the fight for equality. Lyndon B. Johnson's role as a civil rights champion is a testament to his vision and courage, qualities that enabled him to transform the nation for the better. Chapter 11. War on Poverty. Lyndon B. Johnson, after becoming president, embarked on a mission to transform America into a great society. A central part of this vision was his war on poverty. Johnson believed that in a country as wealthy as the United States, no one should live in poverty. He aimed to create programs that would help lift Americans out of poor conditions and ensure they had access to the basic needs of life. The war on poverty was not just about financial aid. It was about giving people the tools to help themselves. Johnson's goal was to make America a place where everyone had the opportunity to succeed, regardless of their background. One of the first steps in this war was the Economic Opportunity Act of 1964. This groundbreaking legislation created many programs to help fight poverty. One such program was Job Corps, designed to provide young people with job training and education so they could find good jobs and support themselves. Another was Head Start, which gave young children from low-income families a chance to start school ready to learn, with preschool programs that helped them develop the skills they needed. Johnson also focused on health and nutrition. He expanded the food stamp program to reach more families, ensuring they had enough to eat. Medicare and Medicaid were introduced to help older adults and people with low incomes afford medical care. These programs were revolutionary because, for the first time, the government was taking a direct role in helping to ensure the health and well-being of its citizens. The war on poverty also aimed to improve living conditions. The Housing and Urban Development Act created new housing opportunities for low-income families and helped to build better communities. The idea was to not just give people homes, but to create environments where they could thrive. Education was another critical area. The Higher Education Act made college more accessible to students from all backgrounds by providing financial aid like grants and loans. Johnson believed that education was the key to overcoming poverty, as it opened the door to better job opportunities and a brighter future. Despite these efforts, Johnson's war on poverty faced significant challenges. Some people criticized the programs for being too costly and said they made people dependent on government assistance. Others argued that the programs did not go far enough to address the root causes of poverty. Moreover, as the Vietnam War escalated, more and more of the government's resources were diverted away from domestic programs, including those designed to fight poverty. This made it difficult to fully achieve the goals of the war on poverty. However, Johnson's programs made a significant impact. Millions of Americans were lifted out of poverty, and the programs laid the groundwork for future efforts to help those in need. Today, many of Johnson's initiatives, such as Medicare, Medicaid, and Head Start, are still in place, continuing to serve Americans. The War on Poverty demonstrated Johnson's belief in the power of government to change lives for the better. He was committed to ensuring that the wealth and prosperity of America were shared by all its citizens, not just a privileged few. His efforts showed that while the fight against poverty is challenging, it is possible to make a difference with dedication and the right policies. Johnson's War on Poverty is a testament to his vision of a great society. It reflects his deep compassion for the less fortunate and his belief in the American ideal that everyone deserves a chance to succeed. While not all of his ambitions were fully realized and the battle against poverty continues, Johnson's legacy includes a profound commitment to improving the lives of countless individuals and families. Chapter 12. Vietnam War Escalation. Lyndon B. Johnson, the president who dreamed of a great society, faced a significant challenge that would define much of his presidency: the Vietnam War. This chapter explores how the conflict in Vietnam escalated under Johnson's leadership and the impact it had on both his presidency and the United States. The Vietnam War began before Johnson took office, but it escalated rapidly during his presidency. The war was rooted in the desire of the Vietnamese people to be free from foreign control, first fighting against colonial rule by France, and then against the influence of communist North Vietnam. The United States, fearing the spread of communism in Southeast Asia, supported South Vietnam. When Johnson became president, he inherited a complex and growing conflict. He believed that the United States had to stand firm in Vietnam to protect its interests and prevent the spread of communism. This belief led to a significant increase in U.S. military involvement under his administration. In August 1964, after reports of attacks on U.S. ships in the Gulf of Tonkin, Congress passed the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution. This resolution gave Johnson broad authority to increase U.S. military involvement in Vietnam. Johnson saw this as necessary to support South Vietnam and prevent the spread of communism, but it marked the beginning of a massive escalation of the war. The number of U.S. troops in Vietnam grew rapidly. From a few thousand advisors at the start of his presidency, the number of American soldiers in Vietnam would grow to over 500,000. This escalation was not without controversy. Many Americans supported the effort, believing in the need to fight communism. However, as the war dragged on, more and more people began to question its purpose and the high cost in lives and resources. One of the most challenging aspects of the Vietnam War was its complexity. The Viet Cong, communist fighters from South Vietnam, used guerrilla tactics, making it difficult for American and South Vietnamese forces to combat them effectively. The dense jungles of Vietnam provided cover for the Viet Cong, complicating U.S. military efforts. Despite superior military strength, the United States found it challenging to secure a decisive victory. The war's impact on American society was profound. It was the first war that was extensively covered on television, bringing the realities of conflict into American homes. Images of battles, wounded soldiers, and civilian casualties raised public concern and led to growing anti-war sentiment. Protests against the Vietnam War became a significant part of the 1960s social and political landscape, reflecting deep divisions within the country. As the war continued, the cost in human lives and the financial burden on the United States increased. The war claimed the lives of tens of thousands of American soldiers and millions of Vietnamese people. The financial cost of the war also diverted resources from Johnson's Great Society programs, limiting their effectiveness and reach. Johnson's presidency was deeply affected by the Vietnam War. Despite his significant achievements in civil rights and social welfare, the war overshadowed much of his presidency. The increasing unpopularity of the war contributed to Johnson's decision not to seek re-election in 1968. He announced this decision in a televised address to the nation, shocking many Americans and marking a dramatic end to his pursuit of a second term. The escalation of the Vietnam War under Johnson's leadership remains a controversial chapter in American history. It reflects the complexities of Cold War politics, the challenges of military intervention in foreign conflicts, and the profound impact of war on society. Johnson's handling of the Vietnam War has been debated by historians, with some criticizing his decisions and others acknowledging the difficult situation he inherited. In this chapter, we explored the escalation of the Vietnam War during Lyndon B. Johnson's presidency. The war's impact on America and Johnson's legacy was significant, highlighting the challenges of leadership during a time of conflict and change. The Vietnam War not only shaped the course of Johnson's presidency, but also left a lasting mark on American history, influencing how future conflicts would be viewed and approached. Chapter 13. Tumultuous Times. The presidency of Lyndon B. Johnson was a period of great ambition and profound change, marked by significant achievements and considerable challenges. However, the mid to late 1960s were also tumultuous times in America, characterized by social unrest, political upheaval, and a nation deeply divided over the Vietnam War and civil rights issues. During these years, America witnessed some of the most significant and turbulent events in its history. The civil rights movement, which had been gaining momentum throughout the early 1960s, continued to fight for equal rights and justice for African Americans. Despite the passage of landmark legislation like the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, racial tensions remained high. Cities across the nation experienced riots and protests as African Americans and their allies demanded an end to discrimination and inequality. The Vietnam War also played a central role in the tumultuous times of Johnson's presidency. As the war escalated and the number of American casualties increased, public opinion began to turn against the conflict. The war became deeply unpopular, sparking widespread protests, especially among young Americans. College campuses became hotbeds of anti-war activism, with students organizing marches, sit-ins, and demonstrations to express their opposition to the war. The anti-war movement questioned the morality and necessity of the conflict, leading to a broader debate about America's role in the world and the power of its government. Another aspect of the tumultuous times was the cultural revolution that took place during the 1960s. This period saw a significant shift in social norms and values, with movements advocating for peace, love, and freedom. Challenging the status quo, the counterculture, embodied by the hippie movement, promoted alternative lifestyles and protested against societal constraints and the Vietnam War. Music, art, and literature from this period reflected the nation's tumultuous mood, with artists and musicians becoming voices of protest and change. The assassinations of key figures during this period added to the sense of turmoil and loss. The nation was still reeling from the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in 1963, when it faced the murders of Martin Luther King Jr. in April 1968, and Robert F. Kennedy in June 1968. These tragic events shocked the country, leading to mourning and outrage. The assassinations underscored the deep divisions and conflicts within American society, highlighting the urgent need for reconciliation and peace. Amidst these challenges, President Johnson faced the difficult task of leading a nation divided. His vision for a great society was challenged by the realities of the Vietnam War and social unrest. The war consumed much of Johnson's attention and resources, which he had hoped to devote to domestic programs aimed at eliminating poverty and racial injustice. The widespread protests and riots, often met with police violence, further strained the nation's unity and tested Johnson's leadership. Despite these difficulties, Johnson remained committed to his goals. He continued to push for social reforms and worked to address the issues causing division and unrest. However, the growing discontent with the Vietnam War and the pace of social change led to a decline in his popularity. By 1968, facing mounting criticism and realizing the toll his presidency had taken on his health and personal life, Johnson made the stunning decision not to seek re-election, announcing his withdrawal in a televised address to the nation. The tumultuous times of the 1960s were a period of transformation and conflict in America. They were years of progress and pain, of aspiration and despair. Through it all, Lyndon B. Johnson sought to lead a nation through its trials, striving to uphold the ideals of democracy and equality. His presidency was marked by both significant achievements and profound challenges, reflecting the complexities of governing during one of the most turbulent periods in American history. Chapter 14. Not Seeking Re-Election. In the late 1960s, President Lyndon B. Johnson faced one of the most difficult decisions of his political career. After years of serving his country, first in Congress, then as Vice President, and finally as President, Johnson found himself at a crossroads. The United States was deeply embroiled in the Vietnam War, a conflict that had become increasingly unpopular at home. At the same time, the country was experiencing significant social and political upheaval, with widespread protests against the war, demands for civil rights, and calls for social reform. Amidst this turbulent backdrop, Johnson made a shocking announcement that would mark a turning point in American history. He would not seek re-election for the presidency. The decision not to run for another term was both personal and political for Johnson. By 1968, the Vietnam War had escalated under his watch, with thousands of American soldiers and countless Vietnamese civilians losing their lives. The war had also taken a toll on the American psyche, dividing the nation and leading to massive protests. Johnson, who had once envisioned his presidency as a time to build a great society focused on eliminating poverty and racial injustice, found his administration increasingly consumed by the war. The conflict overshadowed his domestic achievements, and Johnson's popularity plummeted. Moreover, the personal toll on Johnson was significant. The weight of the presidency, the criticism he faced over the war, and the internal divisions within his own political party had left him exhausted and disillusioned. Johnson, a man who had spent much of his life in public service, was deeply affected by the negative turn in public opinion. He felt that the division and unrest in the country were partly a reflection of his leadership, and he questioned whether he was the right person to lead the nation forward. On March 31, 1968, Johnson addressed the nation in a televised speech. The speech was expected to be an update on the Vietnam War and his plans for the upcoming election. However, it concluded with words that stunned Americans. "I shall not seek, and I will not accept, the nomination of my party for another term as your president." This announcement came as a surprise to the American public and the political world. Johnson's decision not to run for re-election opened the door for new leadership and set the stage for one of the most tumultuous presidential elections in American history. Johnson's announcement was met with a mix of shock, relief, and speculation. Some saw it as a noble act of self-sacrifice, with Johnson stepping aside for the good of the country. Others interpreted it as an acknowledgement of his declining popularity and the unwinnability of the Vietnam War. Regardless of the interpretation, Johnson's decision not to seek re-election had a profound impact on the political landscape. It signaled a shift in American politics and marked the end of an era defined by ambitious social programs and deep national division. In the remaining months of his presidency, Johnson focused on trying to secure peace in Vietnam and solidify his legacy in domestic affairs. He worked tirelessly to negotiate a peace settlement, though a resolution would not be reached until after he left office. Domestically, he continued to advocate for civil rights and the programs of his Great Society, hoping to leave behind a record of progress and compassion. Lyndon B. Johnson's decision not to seek re-election reflects the complexities of leadership during one of the most turbulent periods in American history. It was a decision shaped by the realities of war, the demands of the presidency, and the deep divisions within American society. Johnson's choice to step aside remains a significant moment in the narrative of his presidency, illustrating the personal and political challenges of leading a nation through change and conflict. Chapter 15. Legacy and Retirement. After announcing his decision not to seek re-election, President Lyndon B. Johnson's final months in office were a period of reflection and continued effort. He had navigated the United States through some of its most tumultuous times, including significant advancements in civil rights and the deepening quagmire of the Vietnam War. As he prepared to leave the White House, Johnson pondered his legacy and looked forward to a quieter life back in Texas. Lyndon B. Johnson returned to his ranch in Texas, a place that had always been a source of solace and grounding for him throughout his political career. Retirement for Johnson, however, was not merely a retreat into private life. He remained deeply interested in national affairs and the ongoing impact of his Great Society programs. Johnson's post-presidency years allowed him time to reflect on his tenure, the decisions he made, and the tumultuous era over which he presided. One of Johnson's most enduring legacies is his contribution to civil rights. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 were landmark achievements that transformed American society. These pieces of legislation helped dismantle legal segregation and ensured that voting rights were extended to all Americans, regardless of race. Johnson's efforts in this area marked a significant step forward in the nation's journey toward equality, and his leadership during this critical period is often celebrated as one of his greatest achievements. Another key aspect of Johnson's legacy is his war on poverty. Initiatives like Medicare, Medicaid, the Economic Opportunity Act, and various education programs aimed to uplift Americans from poverty and improve the quality of life for millions. These programs had a lasting impact, creating a safety net for the vulnerable and laying the groundwork for future social welfare efforts. However, Johnson's presidency was also marked by the Vietnam War, an issue that profoundly affected his legacy. The escalation of the conflict and the subsequent loss of American and Vietnamese lives remain controversial aspects of his tenure. The war not only shaped public perception of Johnson, but also influenced his decision not to seek re-election. The complexities of the Vietnam War and its impact on American society continue to be a topic of discussion and analysis, highlighting the challenges Johnson faced in foreign policy and military engagement. In retirement, Johnson took on the role of an elder statesman, offering advice when sought and reflecting on his years of public service. He dedicated time to the LBJ Library and Museum, located at the University of Texas in Austin, which he hoped would serve as a center for research and education on his presidency and the issues he cared deeply about. Johnson saw the library as a way to continue his commitment to public service and education, even after his departure from public life. Johnson's health, however, began to decline in the years following his presidency. The stress and demands of his years in office took a toll, and he suffered from heart problems. On January 22, 1973, Lyndon B. Johnson passed away at his ranch at the age of 64. His passing was mourned across the nation, and he was remembered as a president who sought to make America a more just and equitable society. In the years since his death, Johnson's legacy has been re-evaluated and appreciated in new ways. While the Vietnam War remains a significant and often criticized part of his presidency, his domestic achievements, especially in civil rights and social welfare, have gained recognition for their positive impact on American society. Johnson's vision of a great society, where all citizens have the opportunity to achieve their potential, continues to inspire discussions about the role of government in addressing social and economic challenges. As we conclude this chapter on Lyndon B. Johnson's legacy and retirement, it is clear that his presidency was a time of significant change for the United States. Johnson's efforts to create a more just and equitable society, his leadership during a period of civil unrest and war, and his complex legacy continue to shape our understanding of American history. Johnson's story is a reminder of the power of leadership and the impact of public service on the nation's course. Chapter 16. A Nation Reflects. As time passed since Lyndon B. Johnson's presidency, the United States has had the opportunity to reflect on his time in office, considering both the immediate impact of his policies and their long-term implications for American society. Johnson's presidency, defined by significant achievements and considerable challenges, remains a subject of debate and analysis, offering lessons on leadership, policy-making, and the complexities of governing a diverse and changing nation. Lyndon B. Johnson's vision for a great society aimed at eliminating poverty, promoting equality, and improving the quality of life for all Americans. His commitment to civil rights led to the passage of groundbreaking legislation, including the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. These laws marked a turning point in the nation's journey toward civil rights and social justice, dismantling legal segregation, and ensuring that voting rights were protected. Johnson's efforts in this area have been widely recognized and praised, underscoring his role as a pivotal figure in the civil rights movement. The war on poverty, introduced under Johnson's administration, initiated a range of social programs designed to assist the poor, improve education, and provide health care for the elderly and the needy. Programs like Medicare, Medicaid, Head Start, and Job Corps have had a lasting impact, creating a safety net for millions of Americans and reflecting Johnson's belief in the government's role in addressing social and economic challenges. However, Johnson's presidency was also marked by the Vietnam War, a conflict that deeply divided the nation and had a profound impact on American society and politics. The escalation of the war under Johnson's leadership and the resulting human and financial costs have been subjects of criticism. The war's unpopularity contributed to Johnson's decision not to seek re-election, highlighting the challenges of making decisions in complex international contexts. The social and cultural changes of the 1960s further complicated Johnson's presidency. The era was characterized by a push for social reform, a questioning of traditional values, and a demand for greater freedoms. These changes, coupled with opposition to the Vietnam War, created a climate of unrest and protest that defined much of Johnson's time in office. Johnson's ability to navigate these tumultuous times, balancing his ambitious domestic agenda with the realities of war and social change, is a testament to his skills as a leader. In reflecting on Johnson's legacy, it is essential to consider the broader context of his presidency. Johnson took office during a period of significant change, with the nation grappling with issues of race, poverty, and war. His leadership during this time, characterized by bold ambitions and significant challenges, has left a complex legacy that continues to influence American politics and society. Today, Johnson is remembered for his contributions to civil rights and social welfare, as well as for the challenges of the Vietnam War. His presidency offers valuable lessons on the power of government to effect positive change, the importance of leadership in times of crisis, and the complexities of addressing social and political issues in a diverse and changing nation. As the nation reflects on Lyndon B. Johnson's presidency, it is clear that his impact on American history is significant and multifaceted. His vision for a great society, his efforts to promote civil rights and social justice, and his leadership during a period of national and international turmoil have shaped the course of the nation's history. Johnson's legacy, with its achievements and controversies, encourages ongoing reflection and discussion about the role of leadership in achieving social and political change. Chapter 17. The Last Days. The final chapter in the life of Lyndon B. Johnson, the 36th President of the United States, is a story of reflection, legacy, and the inevitable passage of time. After announcing he would not seek re-election, Johnson retired to his beloved ranch in Texas. There, amidst the quiet landscapes that had shaped his early years, Johnson entered the last phase of his life. Returning to his roots allowed Johnson some peace and a chance to reflect on his tumultuous yet impactful presidency. Despite the serenity of his surroundings, the weight of his years in public service lingered. The Vietnam War, civil rights struggles, and the monumental efforts to create a great society had taken their toll on Johnson's health and spirit. Johnson's retirement years were marked by both personal fulfillment and ongoing health challenges. He took great pride in the Lyndon B. Johnson Library and Museum, which opened in 1971 on the campus of the University of Texas in Austin. The library served not only as a repository for his presidential papers, but also as a place for study and reflection on the significant issues he had faced during his administration, including civil rights, social reform, and the complexities of the Vietnam War. Despite his retreat from public life, Johnson remained interested in national affairs, offering advice to his successors and pondering the future direction of the country he had served. He stayed in touch with political allies and adversaries alike, never fully stepping away from the world of politics that had been his life's work. However, Johnson's health, which had been deteriorating due to years of stress and a heart condition, became a growing concern. His love for his ranch and the Texas Hill Country provided some comfort and joy in his final years, but his physical decline was evident. Johnson, once a towering figure in American politics, found his activities increasingly limited by his weakening heart. On January 22, 1973, Lyndon B. Johnson passed away at his ranch at the age of 64, leaving behind a complex legacy. His sudden death from a heart attack shocked the nation and brought an outpouring of tributes from around the world. Johnson was laid to rest in his family cemetery on the ranch property, close to the land that had shaped him and amidst the people he had loved. Johnson's passing prompted a national reflection on his contributions to American society. His presidency had been a time of significant achievement and profound controversy. Under his leadership, America made strides toward realizing its ideals of justice and equality through the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. His war on poverty and efforts to create a great society aimed at lifting Americans out of poverty and ensuring access to basic needs and rights. Yet, the Vietnam War's shadow loomed large, a conflict that deeply divided the nation and complicated his legacy. As historians and citizens alike have continued to assess Johnson's impact, there is a growing appreciation for his ambitious domestic agenda and his commitment to civil rights. His vision of a great society where all Americans could share in the nation's prosperity and live free from discrimination and poverty remains influential. In the years since Johnson's death, the Lyndon B. Johnson Library and Museum has become a place of learning and reflection, drawing visitors interested in the tumultuous 1960s and Johnson's role in shaping modern America. The library's exhibits and programs offer insights into the challenges and achievements of his presidency, encouraging a deeper understanding of a pivotal period in American history. The last days of Lyndon B. Johnson's life were a time of personal reflection and historical significance. As the nation mourned his passing, it also began to reassess his tenure in the White House, recognizing the complexity of his legacy. Johnson's efforts to transform American society through legislation and leadership have had a lasting impact, contributing to the ongoing pursuit of equality and justice.